We're adjusting okay. We've had some calls that have been okay and some calls that are like, I'm not used to it yet. So, I was remarkably awake and alert at this point, which was really weird because normally when I get up in the morning, I'm like, and then as I get on the show, I get pretty energized for the morning. But I was pretty energized throughout the getting ready this morning. But
All
how
right.
about yourself?
Yeah, what choice do I have? You got to get in the groove, and looking forward to longer daylight. So,
Fair enough. Lots more daylight to do business in.
yeah, right, because there's never enough time. So, speaking of time, we are going to talk today about a few things, if time permits. The great mind of real estate, Mr. Paul Adler, and columnist for the Rockland County Business Journal, wrote recently in a piece that the word of the moment in commercial real estate is repositioning. And as he said, then that's coming to a mall near you. And what he's talking about is that the shops at Nanuet and the Palisades Center, it is obvious that they must reposition their properties and do something different with them. I mean, particularly the shops at Nanuet, which is quite gutted.
Is that just because of their positioning or because of the online market?
It's a combination of the disintegration of retail as we know it, as we knew it. It is e-commerce. It is perhaps with the shops at Nanuet, possibly not having understood the Rockland market and possibly having overshot, its bounds in terms of what kind of stores would really thrive here. It is the pandemic. It is the change in lifestyle. It is the not eating out in the large restaurants as much. It is the perfect storm of, this has been underway, let's say maybe the last few years, maybe 4 or 5 years, but everything has been accelerated to the point where malls really must reinvent themselves. And what we're seeing around, even in our next-door neighbor in New Jersey, and certainly upstate, and in fact with the very owner of the Palisades Mall, what we're seeing is that these malls are integrating, and instead of struggling for retail or even continuing to I would say, bet on entertainment as the thing that's going to save them, which I think we heard for a couple of years, I think they're possibly looking at more practical solutions, such as integrating housing, hotel, convention center, things as post offices, open public spaces, which people appreciate, and just other components to fill out and to balance the mall to possibly become. I've even read stories about malls integrating, and this isn't so unusual, houses of worship within their spaces. Some talk here. I've even heard whispers, maybe, but I don't think this will come to see the light of day. But I mean, you could even use the space of the mall, a portion of it, for animal sheltering. I mean, we certainly have a huge problem with animal sheltering in this county. And then, of course,
specifically the buildings they're stored in.
The buildings, that is a whole other topic for a whole other day, which I could do a whole segment on and would be happy to. But for now, I'm going to try to stay focused on even the idea of transit hubs is absolutely makes sense because it's already paved over. It's already, you've already, there's a concentration of humanity around the mall, especially if you add in a residential component. We see, for example, that the New Jersey mega mall, the American Dream, is reportedly seeking an extension to repay its construction loan on the $5 billion entertainment and shopping venue. And that 555 Group has asked J.P. Morgan-led group of lenders for a 4-year delay on paying back $1.7 billion with a B, on construction financing. So, the malls are under pressure, and I think that just one of the points that Mr. Adler makes in his latest column is that, yes, the malls need to reinvent themselves, but the one important component of this is community buy-in and civic engagement. And I think he's absolutely right, is that, in a sense, we as citizens, taxpayers, it is important to kind of champion this transition, because if the mall goes, so goes our taxes, and not in a good direction. And it just makes sense, because the malls have so much, such a large footprint, that the citizenry may as well be involved in trying to ask for what it wants. So he's put this message out in the last column that he did for us, and I wanted to echo it here on the radio, because I think it's a message that makes sense, and I think that he is right that it's a collaborative process, and that it takes the right balance of stakeholders, which is not just the mall owners and lenders, but it's also the taxpayers, environmental groups, planners, school districts, first responders, and all the neighbors. And so, I don't know how we proactively get that started. I think that's down to the leaders of the community. Ed Day, I hope you're listening to this.
He does listen very frequently. Of course,
he must. He should. So that was an interesting column that we ran, and not that dissimilar to that, or sort of as a corollary to that. We also ran a piece on co-working. And now co-working is one of these phrases that, it can mean a lot of different things. But let's just say what we're seeing, and again, the reason I'm putting this under the same umbrella of this conversation is that it's another example of repositioning real estate. So, for example, the pandemic, just as it has changed our eating and shopping and entertainment habits, it's also very much changed our working habits, as we know. Lots of people haven't even full-time returned to offices, and many people cannot stand to be in their house for another minute, and need or just want to be, out in the world and have some humanity around them. Co-working, the thing about co-working is, and let's just say co-working is when a landlord, just for the purpose of this conversation, they take a space and they divide it up in some way so that you can have many people coming in and out and working in that space, and possibly shared conference rooms, or sometimes it's small offices that are cordoned off. Sometimes it's more of an open plan. But no matter what, it's an opportunity for the landlord to reposition their spaces.
Tina?
Yes.
We do have Lori from Congers on the line that wants to ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Not a problem.
All righty, Lori, you're on with Tina Traster from the Rockland County Business Journal.
Thanks, Will. Hi, Tina. My name is Lori.
Hi, Lori.
I have a question about the old Vanderbilt lumber. That's been empty probably about 10 years at this point, and we were just wondering what was going on with it.
We will check into that, and I will get back to you. Why don't you either send me an email, or we can call next week, and we'll see if we can find out. It's called Vanderbilt Lumber?
Yes.
In Congress?
Basically at the corner, no, New City.
Oh, New
It's
City.
on 304, just about at the intersection of Congress Road.
Okay, we'll see what we can find out. There's always an answer.
I hope so. Originally, I believe it was supposed to be.
I believe the site is slated for housing, though.
Yes, that was the last I had heard.
Yes.
That it was going to be housing, senior housing, or something.
Right. The plans actually, they have been submitted, but I'm not exactly sure what the status of that is, but that is what the site is slated to be, senior housing.
Okay. I was just wondering at what point, where they're at this point, 10 years later, you know? So.
Things seem to take a very long time.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Lori, for your question.
You're very welcome, everybody. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
And as you were saying, Tina, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, just to wrap up on the point about co-working, what I was about to say is that it's not just an opportunity for landlords to reposition their property. It is also an opportunity to breathe life into downtown main streets. Because when you put co-working spaces into a Nyack or a Piermont or the Nanuet, Main Street down there, what you do is you bring life, and you bring young life and vibrant life, and those people, eat and they shop, or they're out during the day and they go out for coffee. And so co-working, is just another example of something that's new, and we have a lot of space here in this county, and a lot of office space that's probably vacant. So just the word of the day is repositioning properties, and for landlords and property owners to be thinking. I mean, we hear a lot about senior housing, and we hear a lot about warehousing, and there are a lot of sectors within real estate where there's a lot of change and shifts going on right now, and we're just wanting people to be aware of that and participate if they can.
Sure, I'm sure they will if they can. Like you said, it has a lot of benefits to it, so I'm sure it'll hopefully be bringing a lot of people to it.
Yeah, I think so. It very much makes sense to be part of the conversation.
Yes, indeed. Was there anything else you had on your mind this morning?
Let's see. Well, of course, we did cover the short-term rental issue in Clarkstown, and that was quite a long evening.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, I mean, that is an example of citizen participation, which I always find very comforting when lots of people turn up and express what they think.
How was the turnout?
It was fairly robust. There was a lot of discussion. There was certainly the residents from Turnberry Court, the area where the unfortunate shooting took place. There was equally, if not more, people also speaking on the other side, suggesting that the town table the issue, that they, felt that it was a knee-jerk reaction, that it was too draconian, too extreme. But it was obvious that the decision had been made, and that despite all of the public feedback and some issues raised, in terms of inconsistencies in the law. I mean, I just think, it wouldn't surprise me if we opened our story with one particular woman. Her name was Alexandria. I forget her last name now. She told a compelling story about how she came from Queens 15 years ago and lives here with her infant child and rents out her house, and that this is a crucial part of her income, and that this is the sort of thing that would maybe potentially threaten her ability to stay here. And that's the kind of testimony that that she might be in the minority of people who are in a situation like that. But it is still, that person's reality. I worry when laws like this get passed, is that instead of being able to actually regulate, when the law is in place, where you can obtain a permit, where there's a process for this, I think there's more of an opportunity for something for it to be above board. Mm-hmm. Whereas in a situation like this, if somebody really, really needs this kind of short-term rental, I imagine there's always a workaround. So they won't list their property on Airbnb or VRBO. But if somebody's really dependent on this income, I think that they might, struggle to find a workaround. And I think that whenever you create that kind of an underground situation, you end up worse off than if you have something in daylight that can be regulated. So anyway, the decision was made. It was obvious that the decision was hardened even before all. There was a lot of testimony, as I said, urging the council to table it, to rethink it. There were some issues that were raised, but you could see that there was consensus that this bill was going to pass, full stop. And it did. It passed unanimously. So, and I think just on this subject, one thing that I did witness is, I'm not so sure that people all around the county want to see their towns and jump on this as well. The same law exists although not the fines aren't as steep, in Stony Point. But I did see a lot of chatter on social media from people in Orangetown, places like, although Piermont and Nyack have their own governments, but, people wondering out loud, will Orangetown be next? The way that seems to happen in this county, where you get this kind of, once it starts in one town, it dominoes into others. So I think we're going to watch for that and see if this becomes an issue in Orangetown or Ramapo.
And you said you actually observed that there were more people on the side of being opposed to at least the regulation as much as, or at least as it was proposed for George Homan and the council?
I would say that there was a concentration of people who were from that immediate vicinity who came and gave very emotional testimony because their children had witnessed this random shooting, and they were very distraught, and I totally understand that. And I'm a homeowner, I raised a child, so I understand how traumatic that can be. But I would say that there were more, just in sheer numbers, there were probably more people who came forward to try to offer the perspective that this kind of law may not be needed, that, we do have a police force, that we do have, an ability to find people who went without permits, that I thought the most compelling testimony, apart from the woman who I mentioned also, was, we have people like visiting nurses, okay? They don't always come here and spend an entire month here. They might need to come here for 2 weeks. This precludes that. This does not allow a visiting nurse, and we knew, during the pandemic, visiting nurses were critical. So that's just one example. A visiting nurse comes here, needs a place for 2 weeks, would rather stay in a house, or a large family, wants to travel here. It's expensive. It's expensive to travel. Somebody talked about how they had a couple of people who came and stayed on short-term rentals, and then ended up buying property in the, I think it was the town or the county, because they ended up liking the place so much. I think this ban just forecloses on a lot of things. And then there is despite what the council or the legal the lawyer for the council was saying, it is vague. The example came up of, well, let's say you have somebody come and stay at your house for a week because they want to, they're going to watch your cat and they're going to get paid for it. According to the law, if somebody is in your house on a short-term basis and there's gain, any kind of gain, that's technically illegal. But and if you think about it, this is it's in a sense it's almost so kind of unenforceable. I mean, the only way for I would say the enforcement would end up, I think, happening in two ways. One, if somebody was, I guess, bold enough to keep their house listed on a service like Airbnb or VRBO, then they'd be inviting, the town to come slap them with these very large fines. The other way is if you let's say you have a house and you've got a short-term rental because you've figured a workaround, and people are unruly or disruptive, and the police end up there, then that person's going to end up in court too. But I mean, you could loan your house, right? You could be you could have a teenage son or daughter, and they end up throwing, a big party, and it's really disruptive. I mean, it's, a lot of the thinking was, oh, these short-term rentals, they're a problem with partying and noise and traffic. I think that is probably not the case. For most people who were renting their houses for short-term rentals, were doing it for the extra income and offering a service that is just useful for people who are passing through. Another guy talked about he was fixing up a house, and he said he had some friends from West Point, and they came and stayed on a short-term basis because he paid them, I think, to do some work in the renovation of the house. And there's all kinds of circumstances where you just might need to rent your house on a short-term basis to somebody for reasons that we can't even imagine. And yes, there was lots of testimony about that, but I can tell you can just tell sometimes when a decision has been made, even before the public has been heard. Sometimes you can see that the public testimony will give pause to a decision that's underway, and other times you can tell it is just a foregone conclusion. I feel confident to say that this decision was hardened. It had been already made. Yes, there was the politeness to listen and presumably ponder, but this decision had been made. The decision was, let's keep out short-term rentals. And there's one other aspect of the law which is kind of, I don't know, is that the person who comes and stays in the house, if there's a short-term rental, would also be held in violation, would also be a violator, as if somebody from the outside should know somehow, what our local laws are. Seems like a bit of a stretch. So I don't know, what kind of messaging this really sends. But I'd say that the takeaway today is to let's see what happens in the rest of the county with this.
Indeed, we will have to see. And thank you so much, Tina Traster from the Rockland County Business Journal. If you want more information about Rockland County business, of course, visit their website, rcbizjournal.com, or you can go to their Facebook page at the Rockland County Business Journal. And thank you so much, Tina, for coming and joining us as you do every time. We'll talk to you next time, same bat time, same bat channel, next week on Monday at the same time. Thank you so much, and have a good week.
All right, same bat cave. Talk to you next.
We'll talk to you then.